Poor Luetin, he was waiting on me to watch his Tao video on Friday, and I didn't have enough time. So thank you so much for providing us, this lore. Those sturdy smurfs. Blue space monkeys, fish people, Japanese communists, the Tao, I guess. I've heard much about the Tao thanks to you guys, so now I'll actually know what the hell they are. Weeaboo space communists. They like anime? Do you think they'd like me? Alright, down, 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 into the rabbit hole. Here we go. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. I know, it's a long video. The Emperor's realm must be cleansed of the taint of the Xenos and the heretic. We destroy the former by the sword. We shall destroy the latter through faith and the sword. Gerlach, Black Templars, Dreadnought. Nice! I like the Dreadnoughts. Maybe they have VTubers that they use to subvert human societies? I heard that they use people as meat shields. Oh god, Luetin, you weren't kidding about the Comic Sans! It's okay. Stranger, I bid you greetings in the name of the Tao. If you are reading this, then you will have encountered one of our messenger drones and are therefore a spacefaring race. You will soon see more evidence of us. This is no cause for alarm. Yeah, cause the Tao just want to be friends with everyone, right? The Tao use mind control? That's why it's in Comic Sans. It causes me mental strife to read this. He knew what he was doing, huh? When you encounter one of our ships or outposts, welcome it. We have much to offer a faithful friend. I knew it. We are 5 castes, 1 people. All are bound to dream of bringing a new and better way to the universe. All are working towards the greater good. Oh, they don't want to be friends? They want to use you? Oh, they're like master manipulators. Oh, okay. I hope you will choose to share the culture, technology, and protection of the Tao Empire. The wise learn to adapt to change, believe in our destiny. Is that the Incredibles? Tao!
While many races in the universe of the 41st millennium have deeply travelled, explored, and established a heavy footprint across the galaxy, the same cannot be said for the upstart forces of the Xenos race known as the Tau. They are a comparatively young race who, unlike the Imperium, have developed and advanced their technology, giving significant power to their burgeoning empire. Today, we will overview the race known as the Tau. The Tau were originally
Why does he sound so like, and the Tao? Oh god. Oh god, the Tao. The Tao greater good, aka we think we're better than you and will constantly hold it over your head. So they're narcissists. Narcissistic manipulators. Just like my ex.
Discovered in the latter part of the 35th millennium by an exploratory fleet of the Adeptus Mechanicus. At this time, the Tau were noted and recorded as being a fairly innocuous species who was seen only to have recently begun using simple tools as well as having learned to make safe fire. They were clearly at the very early stage of development, whereas the Imperium of Man was already reuniting planets it had conquered millennia before.
They do look like
the
fish
Tau
people.
inhabited at this time was also identified as being usable as a resource world by the Imperium, and at any other time this primitive race would have been subsequently eradicated from the planet, so that it could be prepared and colonized by humanity in preparation for the extraction of its resources. The Tau, though, through a significant amount of luck, would travel a different path. Some might call it fate, for this xenophobic purging by the race of mankind would not occur. Violent warp storms would erupt around the Tau homeworld before the Imperium would have a chance to cleanse the planet, and the outbreak of the Age of Apostasy would descend on humanity as well. This was a power struggle between the Ecclesiarchy and the High Lords of Terror, as well as others who sought to exploit the internal struggles of the Imperium and would additionally prevent any further return to the Tau homeworld. To compound things, and how often this is the case with Imperium Imperium record keeping, the planet would be archived and forgotten about, buried in the seas of bound paper and labyrinths of archives that is the Imperial Administratum. The Imperium in short order forgot about these exploratory notations in order to pay far closer attention to more pressing attentions within its own ranks.
They just ignore the Tau. I guess they're not much of a threat, huh?
6,000 years would pass until a ship of unknown determination would appear at Devlin in the Ultima Segmentum. After failing to identify itself, the ship was destroyed by the Imperial Navy. Bodies were recovered and examined, they were assessed, cross-referenced with Imperial records, and showed a significant match with a long since forgotten about 6,000-year-old report that described a primitive race who had barely advanced beyond the earliest beginnings of civilization. If this was in fact the same race that had been described millennia before, it was of an urgent and immediate concern to the Imperium. Seeing such fast advancement in the Xenos race, from using stone tools to building starships and voyaging into the darkness of space within only a few millennia, was troubling and would require prioritized exploration and information gathering by the Imperium. Subsequent investigations found that even some human worlds that were in proximity to the Tau system had already begun trading with these Xenos somehow, and enough was enough. The Damocles Crusade would begin and initiate the first state of war between humanity and the Tau Empire.
So we're just trying to keep the Tau from advancing. Interesting. Okay.
The Tau are an unusual race by the standards of the 41st millennium, for they are neither a race of bloodthirsty, instinct-driven monsters seeking purely an ever-ongoing plague of war, nor are they irrationally xenophobic or choose to base their way of life around some grandiose ideology of either conquering those who resist them or the absolute destruction of all. They do though seek the expansion of their empire, and through force if necessary. For the Tau, all their societal directions are governed by an overarching philosophy they refer to as the greater good. As stated, unlike other races in the darkness of the future, the Tau do not by default seek to eradicate other species as a matter of course, but they do aim to spread their philosophy, culture and territory. They do want to grow and further their civilization, to put it simply. Those individuals or planets who are unwilling or unable to open their minds to the benefits of the greater good are likely to face some form of more forceful persuasion, first diplomatically, and if this should fail or reach an impasse, then through physical force. The greater good is at the core of Tau culture because it dictates and influences everything from their civilian life to diplomacy and warfare. The greater good is also known as the Tau Va.
Some context: since this video, Tau have become stronger and expanded a lot, even threatening Ultramar. Oh no! Okay, I guess this video did come out, I think it was 5 years ago, so they've added a bit more lore. So we didn't really do a good job of keeping them in their place. They managed to advance. Uh-oh.
And this combination of philosophical and quasi-religious principles governs much of what the Tau feel they must do and helps maintain their structure and lives. It operates around a caste-based social stratification system, which means that essentially a Tau's role in life is dictated by hereditary transmission into a certain workforce or lifestyle. Ultimately, these are embedded social classes in Tau society that ensure the majority of Tau have very little in the way of personal choices. However, it has been stated that Tau all have the free will to choose their own destiny, and the fact that they choose to serve the greater good and their lot in life is merely a testament to how righteous a path it is that all Tau choose to live by its teachings. In some ways, this is not entirely unlike the Imperium across many worlds. For the Tau, though, it is more embedded as a principle and taught as a fundamental balancer for their lives. For this reason, it is more accepted and brings a sense of focus and serenity for many Tau, who were born never having to make a decision about what they should do. They will learn their place and then focus on carrying out that role to the best of their ability for their lives. Instead of either destroying or on occasion crushing into submission enemies as the Imperium does, the Tau rather seek to absorb others into their collective.
Also, Commander Farsight is the only best character for the Tau. Is this a Farsight? This guy looks pretty crazy. This is the smaller ones down here too, but this guy's a big one. Like a dreadnought. The Tau are still a sub-faction, but use the Tyranids invasion to sneak in because they can't do shit alone. Those sneaky bastards.
Concept to most of the other races in the galaxy seems entirely unthinkable.
Oh, hi, Abel.
However, it has been rumoured that pockets of Imperial forces who have been cut off from all other help instead of making the correct choice of fighting to the death and have actually allowed themselves to be absorbed into the Tau Empire and now live within their society. And these individuals are, to the surprise of no one, seen by the servants of the Imperium as heretics, and they should be purged and exterminated at the earliest opportunity, not before likely receiving an extremely thorough interrogation. The fundamental premise of the greater good, generally speaking, is that everyone within the Empire will work to the benefit of everyone else, to better the Tau's position in the galaxy and their collective quality of life.
Oh, is this why you guys call them communists?
Because of ideals and the way by which the Tau unusually amalgamate other species into their
I don't think they caught on that there is only war. I think they're a little late to the news.
society, they now already contain multiple other species as part of their collective. These include the Kroot, a savage species of bird-like warriors, Vespids, a strange insect-like species who utilize crystalline-based technologies. While the Kroot appear to have more like mercenary tendencies, the Vespid actually believe in the ideology of the greater good, and when fighting alongside the Tau will contribute to one another far more of a morale-boosting effect. The Tau have also adopted a species.
Yes, too much kumbaya at long range, too little glorious melee combat. I'm glad you like melee combat as much as I do.
Known as the Nikasa, a nomadic race who are powerful psychers, and they are travelers in space. The Tau use them near exclusively for this role of transporting through space. They are highly psychic entities, and consequently the Tau concealed their existence from their enemies and are only used for space travel purposes, not combat. The Nikasa contribute mainly ships towards the Tau Navy for exploration and scouting purposes. In addition to these absorbed races of the Tau Empire, there are also previously stated human sects that exist within the Tau Collective as well. Conquered humans who by all rights should have chosen death rather than the heretical dishonor of serving the Tau. There are even those who have joined the Tau of their own free will, impressed by the concept of the greater good, as opposed to the more severe nature of the Imperium. And as you would expect,
but you could look like this. But you could look like this. Have you covered the different Space Marine factions, Salamanders, Ultramarines, Iron Fists? I have, yes. I actually have a video on YouTube. I watched the Berkey video, which isn't like a super duper in-depth video, but right now I've been on a Xenos grind. At that point, you'll be in too deep to leave. Oh yeah. Well, I was already talking with people in the Discord about painting figurines, the small miniatures. It might be kind of cool. I mean, you guys have shown me some of your like friends' miniatures and stuff like that. And it's fun doing arts and crafts. So I don't want to buy anything until I learn more about the world. It's over for you. It's so over. Okay, it's bad. Man, ugh. Jeez, now I'm getting itchy too. Remember, no matter how tasty it looks, don't drink the... Okay, I won't drink the oil. I am Team Human, Team Imperium, Team Imperial Fists, and Battle Sisters. Because they're crazy religious zealots. I like that, they're crazy like that. Apparently they blast, like, choir music when they're killing a bunch of people. There's just something so epic about that. Also, earlier, you said I was like Bloodborne coded. This is Bloodborne. I love this. Love it. Witch Hunters. So, I mean, this would be such a badass cosplay. She's got Ghost Rider over there. How long has Powdur been fawning over the moon? I know, I need to... She's so cool. She is so cool. I want to be just like her someday. Well, I want to be a battle sister one day, honestly, but these are the Inquisitors, if I remember correctly. But damn, they look so cool.
These individuals are considered extreme traitors to the Imperium, and if discovered would be shown little mercy and suffer the worst of Imperial Inquisitors or simply executed on the spot. While their ideological, philosophical and societal organisation is of interest and highly contrasting to the Imperium of Man in many ways, the most concerning element of the Tau for humanity is their technological advances and the speed with which they have advanced their hardware. Within a short period of just a few thousand years, the Tau, as stated, have advanced from using basic tools, making fire and learning how to create basic foundational mechanics and engineering, to a transformation of an advanced spacefaring race with powerful weaponry and exosuits that are, at the very least, concerning to the Imperium. Far more worrying, though, is the possibility that if they were able to continue their current pace of research and development, they could advance beyond the weaponry and war gear of the Imperium, which has, largely due to ever-expanding religious dogma, allowed itself to stagnate and barely develop anything new that is until the most current period in human history. By contrast, the Tau have already become one of the more technologically dependent races in the galaxy, and given the Imperium.
So while the Tau continue to advance, the humans, we choose not to advance. Is that mainly due to the dark age of technology, where we don't want to repeat our past mistakes? Or is it that we're not smart enough? There's stagnation because of religion and fear of AI. I see. Do you think the Tau would have reached a point where they themselves would face a dark age of technology? The Tau don't really have that feeling of needing to obliterate other species or like other races, right? Like the humans do. So we're kind of meddling with them. Whereas we could just leave the Tau alone and they could advance, hit their own dark age of technology. They'd wipe themselves out, and then the problem solves itself, huh? The problem is the Tau are claiming Imperium territory. Okay, so they are encroaching upon our territories. They must die.
Stubborn inability to move forward technologically until very recently, with the return of the previously stasis-entombed Ultramarines Primarch,
their High Counselor, however, is called is full of prejudice towards other races.
The Imperium is beginning to drag itself up out of the mud, every step forward requiring apparently agonizing effort. The Tau, though, may be inexperienced, but they're not fools, and ever since their initial contact with humans settlements, they have played a highly tactical game of infiltration and suggestion to allow them to begin trading and eventually absorb some human worlds in their system as part of the Tau Empire. Yet these worlds were the dissident fringes of the human empire. Some worlds were even forgotten human colonies who had no real sense of themselves as being part of a larger Imperium of Man. It took the Tau some time to grasp the understanding that there was a far greater and more powerful collected human society, and that if they were not cautious, could bring down a wrath they would not be able to defend against. So their initial steps were tentative, but would become progressively more confident. Some have seen fit to suggest that the Tau's speedy development of technology could be down to their locating a lost human STC system, but there's nothing to support this suggestion, and if it were true in any sense, you would imagine their developments would already be far more advanced than they are. The Tau simply demonstrate what can be achieved by a collective, focused sense of purpose and unified drive towards specifically directed goals. If the Imperium had not critically hamstrung itself in religious dogma and bureaucracy, then it may also have been able to achieve far more than it has done over the past millennia, where instead it allowed itself to decay and rot from the inside. So this threat of being outpaced by an upstart race who should by the Emperor's will have been exterminated millennia ago is a sting in the side of the Imperium, far more than the actual literal impact of the Tau. With that said, it is worth noting that the Tau have already proven their ability to hold the line against the Imperium, only further compounding the sense that the Tau are considered an ever-growing threat to the stability of the Imperium. Perhaps not a critical threat in the current moment to be sure, but it would be more than fair to say that unless things begin to change, the threat the Tau represent, as well as being all too aware of having missed a goal.
They kind of look like the people from Avatar. Maybe they reproduce by like hooking their braids together and stuff. Very interesting. Yeah, the Navi. They do. Turtles. Turtle Navi. They got Voldemort. No nose. Turtle. They're like blue turtle Navis.
golden opportunity to eradicate them in the past, down to nothing more than petty human infighting between their internal divisions, mean that the Tau are ever more irritating to the Imperium, and while additionally becoming even more dangerous a threat, the longer mankind waits to crush the Tau, the more difficult and dangerous that task will likely become.
If you want to feel better about
as
your own paint
Inquisitor
jobs.
Gallius would come to realise that the Tau exhibited a naivety not seen in other races, a distinct lack of understanding of the galaxy, its events, and their place in it. Their technological advancements were matched only by their ignorance in the dangers of over-reliance on technology. Such things brought to the Inquisitor's mind scripts that he had read that described mankind before the Dark Age of technology. And while so much knowledge of this time is lost, it is believed that mankind's fundamental faith in technology and the over-reliance on machines caused the downfall of humanity and threatened to spread out beyond. If the Tau were already on a path to developing ever more advanced technology, it was surely only a matter of time before they began to develop that which the Imperium and humanity place among their most severe fears, the development of artificial intelligence, abominable intelligence. To that end, the Tau represent a clear and present danger to the Imperium of Man, and perhaps the entire galaxy, beyond what many could imagine.
I think that's kind of a neat development to add in another, like, faction, I guess you could say. Another Xeno that would not be afraid of technology, but then is a threat to humans because humans know the threat of going too far with technology. I don't know. I think that's kind of neat. I think the Tau so far are kind of neat. I can see why they're annoying and they must be eradicated because of ignorance. I feel like I could talk to you guys for hours.
Like many races, the Tau began as an ununified species whose tribal groups would periodically spar with one another. They would have their own territorial space and defend it against those who infringed upon it. And in these early times, the Tau were formed of 4 specific castes who were continually warring with each other. And the severity of these skirmishes, added with the uncompromising nature of the Tau at this time, is said to have risked the very survival of them as a species. And this period of brutal warring is known as the Mon Tau. It all began during a conflict between some
Well, if you fall asleep, it's all good. No worries. Let the sweet voice of Luetin lull you to bed. Luetin went and got dinner and came back and realized that we only moved like a minute forward and was like, Jesus Christ. That's actually true? What? Are you serious, Luetin? It's nice to have you. Thank you. I'll come back in like 2 hours when you're close to the end. I feel so called out right now. Well, I hope that you have just an amazing day at work. I hope that you get a raise. Anyways, Tau, made by some guy. Some guy made this video. I guess I should support whoever created this or something, I guess.
Tau warriors of the plains and those of a fortress city, Theo
Back to the grind,
The plains
Luetin.
Tau had assaulted and subsequently set up an
Don't let me distract you.
encampment around the city, but negotiations had failed. The Plains Warrior Tau would not be satisfied until the entire city lay in ruins and its citizens were broken and slaughtered. The conflict went on for years, and despite holding out as best they could, the inhabitants of the city began to fall victim to deteriorating health and ever-worsening living conditions. Starvation, disease were starting to take hold, and the situation looked bleak for the citizens of the city. However, it was at this time that 2 mysterious individuals would appear. One of these figures would walk steadily but confidently out from the enveloping darkness in complete silence, approaching the circled encampment of the Plains Warrior Tau and speaking calmly and softly. He would explain that he required to speak with their camp's commander.
Who helped
The guards
them?
of the camp found themselves unexplainably compelled to comply by this figure's confident and authoritative use of language.
A
At the same
turtle.
time, another similar guard would appear in the besieged city and approach the guards within. When questioned as to how he'd been able to enter the lockdown city, he simply refused to answer, but instead requested to speak directly with the Castellan of the fortress city. Despite the years of bitter fighting between the two groups of Tau, the strangers came into the center of the conflict with a dignified sincerity and overwhelming calm confidence about them that radiated onto those around them. This strength of presence, combined with their skillful abilities in diplomacy, left both the attackers and defenders ready to begin new peace negotiations within hours. The gates of the city were swung open, and as the party of defending Tau walked out for the first time in years, a party from the encamped Plains Tau also approached. These mysterious strangers initiated the first talks between these sides in years, and as they spoke, they would highlight the positive traits of both sides, and that if they could only consider uniting their strengths together, they could, instead of slowly weakening one another, achieve a form of collective forward progression that would be a greater good for all. This description obviously skims what must have been a more powerful event than just such simple words. The two figures had a certain power over the other Tau around them, and as they spoke to their philosophy extensively beneath a pure white moon that illuminated the figures as they talked long into the night, and as the sun broke over the horizon the next day, a previously unthinkable situation had been achieved. A truce had been drawn between the two warring sides.
Oh no.
These previously unseen Tau.
I love his hat. It's like a Filthy Frank's "Welcome to the rice fields, motherfucker." I love that hat. Nice.
Are now referred to as the first ethereals. This singular instance was just the beginning though. More ethereals would appear after the success of Luetin and collectively reach out to spread their message of peace and for the struggle to achieve a greater good for all Tau. Where previously only bitter battles and skirmishing warfare had existed, now would come peace and a new sense of uplifting inspiration by the philosophy of the ethereals. The fast spread and uptake of the ethereal outlook was prophetic and would only take 1 year in the Tau calendar for it to unite all Tau across their homeworld, and it would drive them toward a strengthened sense of unity and a progressively positive outlook, the likes of which had never been seen before. Construction, communication, commerce would be some of the very early benefits as the Tau sought to bring all their individual caste skills to the collective betterment of all. The Plains Warrior Tau were the most difficult to ultimately convince that this was the right path forward, but upon seeing the positive constructive nature that was being achieved by all the other Tau, this was enough to convince them that this new philosophy was the way forward for them, and they would join the new Tau Empire in its collective quest for the greater good. The newly reformed race of Tau was now comprised of 5 castes: the Earth caste of builders and artisans, the Water caste of traders and merchants, the Air caste of scouts and communication experts, and the Fire caste, those warriors of the plains. The 5th caste are of course the ethereals, the unifying force in the Tau civilization, and they are in this sense the superior individuals, the elites. They are the 5th elements in the Tau caste, because they are the unifiers.
Yeah, this is when it gets bad.
Unfortunately, while this all sounds very positive and progressive for the Tau, there are, it seems, more sinister and speculative elements to the ethereals.
The ethereals are implied to be artificially introduced to the Tau with the aim to unite the Tau into an empire. Artificially introduced to the Tau. They just came out of nowhere? They just poofed into existence? Unknown aliens, really. What if they're just skinwalkers? Maybe Eldar, maybe someone else.
Many theories whirl as to their origin, one being that the Eldar have genetically influenced them so as to have a role in the direction of the general Tau populace and get them moving in a forward direction, so as to have another force that would assist in dealing with the many threats of the galaxy, including the Imperium, Orcs, Chaos, and so on. There is, though, little direct evidence of this. The possibility of the Eldar having seen potentially some early race and then taken the initiative to spark their forward evolution is quite a delicious theory when you consider that the end goals of this could be for the Eldar to try and ensure that if they don't survive the horrors that are consuming the galaxy, there remains another force to contend with. And more importantly, a force that do not make the same mistakes that they themselves have. A society focused around a cooperative, shared goal instead of individualized, selfish desires which near totally destroyed the Eldar race. Secondly, to create a species who have near to no presence in the warp and are...
Are they talking about themselves? They've ruined themselves. They're not talking about humans, right? They're not talking about the Imperium. Nah. Something interesting is that despite being newbies to the galaxy, they even managed to take down a Titan. Don't know what a Titan is yet.
as such considerably more resistant to the dangers of the Chaos Gods and the Warp itself, something which has already ruined the Eldar multiple times over, as they themselves were seeded and guided by the Old Ones with the goal of deliberately forging a race of powerful psychers. All of this, though, highly speculative and based on very few fragments of interpretation, so it's anybody's guess as to their true origin, and perhaps it is ultimately, as is usually the case, all the more a banal explanation. Perhaps one day we'll know the truth. The more disturbing aspect of Tau society, though, has revealed itself over time, and is far from being a theory. It's surely clear now for all to see, no matter how unpalatable the truth may be to Tau loyalists. There is plenty of evidence as to the issue of the ethereals, that they have not so simply presented a positive and unifying philosophy that all Tau then miraculously decide of their own will to abide by. And the more you consider that, the more it makes so little logical sense as to be dismissed with or without evidence. We hear this tale of how this fifth Tau caste appears out of nowhere, and only with a few words ends savage conflicts that showed only bitterness and no signs of ending. And then overnight they all lay down their arms.
Also, only 1 in 10 million people has the willpower to tame the machine spirit of a Titan. Titan pilots are quite valuable for this reason. Oh, they're called princeps, if you're not mistaken. Huh. Wow, they're the chosen ones. There's a Horse Heresy cinematic where you can see some Titans there. Oh, okay, I've seen that cinematic. Yeah, I guess it just didn't, you know, I hadn't gotten there quite yet. So when I watched the we'll have to rewatch some of these animations, cinematic animations, and I'll be able to kind of point out more things as we go deeper into the whole.
And decide they're all friends again, and now it's time to work together. Please. Only the most naive could believe such a tale. Interrogations and autopsies by the Imperium, as well as documented accounts, have with solid reasoning that without the presence of an ethereal, the Tau are more than likely to revert to a state of self-determination and directly abandon the philosophy of the greater good. This runs in complete contradiction to the official Tau line that all Tau understand by its very nature that the greater good is what they must and will willingly dedicate their whole lives to, as there is no other logical choice to make. The fact that this is demonstrably untrue suggests a very uncomfortable truth, that if suggested, any Tau would immediately and strongly dismiss, and a reasoning that ethereals have no explanation for and become suspiciously silent over if pressed to answer. The truth that the ethereals are essentially a coordinating class, and it is they who enable the Tau to function as a unified collective. I'd be sure, much to the Tau's horror, that if they took the time to really consider this, they in actuality operate not so unlike the Tyranids with their hive mind, and how this is achieved by the ethereals is unknown. Imperial biologists have suggested that the diamond-shaped organ in the center of their foreheads plays some role, but results as to its purpose have yielded inconclusive results. Other theories speculate that the ethereals control the lower-ranked Tau with some biological chemical means exuding like a pheromone, or even some low-level latent psychic ability.
That's kind of scary, isn't it?
Except that the Tau, as far as we know, have no real psychers in their own race.
Yeah, they'd look better
whether this collective control is a more passive influence, leading the lower caste to simply be more open to suggestion, or if it is in fact a far more aggressive and enslaving sense of control, is open to discussion. I lean more towards the sense that it lies somewhere between this direct control and passive suggestion, and that perhaps some Tau are more easily influenced than others. It's also possible that for many Tau this guidance is only partly necessary. The strength of an ideology can be very persuasive, and maybe the ethereals are only needed to keep your average Tau in check. There's no disputing, though, that those who exist within the Tau Empire are living a lie, whether they know it or not, and this is evidenced by the fact that Tau who are cut off from their ethereals seem to revert to a pre-greater good sense of individuality, which, if the Tau's ideology is to be believed and taken as they themselves describe it, seems extremely unlikely. If you were absolutely convinced and indoctrinated into your society's ideology and philosophies, why would you then so abruptly abandon this at the first opportunity, and more specifically doing so when ethereals are absent? It clearly points towards ethereals having a far more proactive and sustained process of mental control over the lower Tau castes. And you can also look at how some allied races within the Tau Empire, such as the Vespid, will wear communion helms that are in air quotes for communication, read, in actuality, necessary ongoing mental manipulation and control. The conclusion to take away is that the Tau are in actuality far from being an advanced and civilized race. This is simply their propaganda. They are not unified by a philosophy or logical ideology that all conveniently agree to live by without question for the positive betterment of others. They are instead quite tragically more like an enslaved race of minions, similar even to the Tyranids or the Necron. They exist tethered to the ethereals by a force ultimately unknown, and who without their presence would likely resort to smashing each other's skulls in just as they had done in the past, or at the very least just going off and doing their own things. Near all the Tau's achievements and the speed of these have been thanks to their collective cooperation, and it's likely that without the ethereals, the Tau would face obliteration by the Imperium and the other arguably more vicious Xenos inhabiting the galaxy. In many ways, bearing this in mind, you may consider to yourself, well, this is surely a good thing. The ethereals enabling the Tau to collectively achieve what they could not on their own, and allow them to function and come together as a constructive force. And as with so many events that occur in the bleak darkness of the far future, it is in fact more often the apparently positive events which can on further reflection reveal a far darker narrative.
I could see the ethereals being Eldar skinwalkers over here enslaving the blue turtle people, therefore advancing in their technology on the sidelines.
Once you begin to scratch away the surface. The Tau in that regard are no exception. Constructive achievements, yes, but paying a high price of mental enslavement, never being their true selves.
Everything's
how aware
possible.
Are they of this fact, and how aware are the ethereals? It's very difficult to say, but the Tau, they for sure are able to think for themselves, formulate decisions, intent, invent, but it's the way in which they're unified that is an uncomfortable reality. Now, I've seen many state that the Tau are the closest thing that exists to having a race led by a positive, constructive hope in the 41st millennium. And in truth, this only works if you ignore and dismiss the fact that the Tau are in all likelihood operating as a society of brainwashed slaves. And while it's true that their goals and diplomatic interactions are far more subtle and arguably positive than that of the alternatives, I find myself asking what's worse, being forced into a course of action without the ability to have your own free will, albeit debatably and comparatively positive, or choosing with your own individual and intact sense of self to adhere to your society's chosen system, or to abandon it and suffer the consequences, but at least making your own decision and knowing your sense of self. I still would argue that when you look around the galaxy, two races who represent the true, purest sense of purpose are the Orcs and the Tyranids. Yes, both are unspeakable alien killing machines that salivate at the mere prospect of killing in the name of, but does it make them ostensibly bad?
Killing in the name of...
Evil even? I think not. Because they're just doing what they do. They're doing what they're designed to do, and the Orcs are loving it. To be clear, the Tau themselves are not a bad race, depending on your point of view, of course, but they do have a bleak life once you begin to speculate a little around how the ethereals control the Tau. They were forcibly indoctrinated into it. Do they have a subconscious understanding that all of this is happening without their real consent? Do they dream of freedom and self-determination, only to awake to another day of reality and mental enslavement? If it weren't for the ethereals forcibly pushing the Tau toward their goals of total unification, they would, as we said, still be camped out around each other's settlements, happy to watch each other die of starvation, disease, and complete emotional and societal breakdown.
Use code
A race
Powdur.
of forward-thinking, progressive, generally peaceful Xenos who only use violence when they must? If that's how you see the Tau, then maybe the ethereals' mind control has started to pierce your consciousness as well. It's easy and certainly appealing as to why some would want to see the Tau as being a positive, uplifting, and alternative force to the unashamed horror and brutality that pervades the rest of the galaxy.
So what I'm hearing is Luetin is a Tau hater.
Yet when it comes to the devolved, the vicious,
He's
or the
calling it like it
pretentious
is.
entities that qualify as civilizations in the rest of the galaxy, you could at least say that their
He's an
crusades, their
ultra-smurfer?
wars, battles, and genocides were honest, that they owned their intentions,
Ultramarines.
allowed others to witness them.
He's a Gilliman. Roberto Gilliman. I see. Classic.
And knew both the strength of their words and their actions, for better or worse. The reason the Tau, to me, are so abhorrent despite their more progressive veneer is that in truth they're neither. They live a lie, and worse, allowed themselves to be manipulated into a lie that they're likely not even aware of. And it can surely only be a matter of time for an event befitting the darkness of the far future to occur, where it must surely come to pass that the Tau, through some catastrophic slaughter of ethereals, perhaps some highly focused campaign of assassination by the Imperium, hint, that subsequently throw the Tau once again back into total anarchy and civil war, leaving them ripe for the plucking. This seems to be not simply a plausible possibility, but knowing how events so regularly befall those in the 41st millennium, this crushing downfall based on their precarious structure of fallacy seems an inevitability. The Tau, a force for good, they're the worst of them all, and their day of ruination will come.
Ignorance is bliss.
Still, despite the dystopian nightmare that is Tau society, and that they are likely all pawns at the beck and call to so many ethereals, it is still true that the overarching principles of the greater good are more appealing than some other races. If you happened upon some Tau yourself and were generally behaving peacefully, they are, for example, unlikely to want to skin you alive, as might the Dark Eldar, and then parade your skin suit around for the entertainment of others. Nor would they want to
I didn't notice last time I saw this that there were dead bodies. This guy's just holding a head. Oh my god.
dissolve you whilst you're still conscious from the inside out, as giant teeth-bearing maggots infest every space in your body, as might the Tyranids, or subject you to months of endless torture and dogmatic interrogation to reveal irrelevant facts for the purposes of dusty administrative record-keeping, as would the Imperium. So while we may deliberately drown ourselves in the bleak horror of the future, you cannot say that it is not the case that, comparatively speaking, the Tau are the lesser of so many evils.
Oh, you need to know, last time people said that the Emperor's children were the Forgotten because they don't have any model, but they finally get announced. Wow, that's exciting! Exciting for the purple lovers. I feel like I need to know if I like their Primarch. He seems to be a little vain.
It simply depends on if you're an individual who prefers to deal with reality in a hard and unvarnished sense,
He's
or
vain
live in the
incarnate.
blissful ignorance of the societal, mind-controlling nightmare you're facing. The greater good teaches, for lack of a better verb, that all sentient beings play an equal and important
paint
role
them
in
yellow.
Caste society, that trivial conflicts only disrupt the progress toward a united Tau and fulfilling the greater good. The Tau, unlike other races, have no desires to break down, destroy, purge, or otherwise exterminate others' culture. They perceive those who choose to resist their enlightened philosophy with more along the lines of confusion than contempt, baffled to come to an understanding of how these individuals are unable to see the
What's he eating? Maybe it's like a wrap. Maybe it's like from Chick-fil-A. That's kind of cute though. They're just like very confused why you don't understand their religion or something.
truth of the greater good, which tells you without direct evidence further suggestion that they are a cult who can't see outside their own space. To this end, the Tau will generally attempt some
Hi,
form of
Warlock.
diplomacy instead of operating a kill-on-sight code of conduct, as is often the case for most other races. And as the Tau themselves discovered when first encountering humanity, after their failure to respond, the Imperium simply obliterated them with no questions asked. However, the Tau are not zombies and have come thankfully quickly to understanding that for some races attempts at diplomacy are just futile. And so when dealing with the races that we know to be inherently
What the heck? It's a twink?
unrelentingly aggressive like the Orcs, Tyranids and
Oh no, he's probably like normal height actually, because the Space Marines are just super large. He's got a funny outfit on though.
to a degree chaos, they've come to understand painfully that these races are never going to be interested in their strangers just a friend you haven't met philosophy. That being ready for combat when encountering these forces is likely the more prudent course of action, and these races
Death Guard.
have been basically blacklisted by the Tau, and they no longer want to try and convince them to join their special greater good club. Thank you very much.
The Stinky Boys.
The Tau also seek to expand their empire in what are known as the spheres of expansion. These are basically periods of great expansion whereby they will to a degree conquer and absorb the worlds they want to expand outward to. And while the Tau themselves and some of their allies certainly fall under the willful suggestion of the ethereals, it's questionable as to how other races will behave in this way.
There's gotta be there's 100% a person out there that knows every little lore about every
The bump
little
is
world
growing
here,
people
huh?
fat.
Bjorla is a militaristic colony with heavy fire caste presence who have a proud tradition, if I remember correctly. You are the guy. Oh my god, we have a lore master in the chat. Not sure if I call myself as a lore master. I literally said, I was like, you know there's one guy out there who knows everything about all of these planets here. And you're like, oh yes, Viola, the planet. Nom nom nom. Here, let me put on my glasses. Mm-hmm. Now I have the nerd glasses. We can duke it out in a nerd battle one day.
Way, it's difficult to know how effective the concept of the greater good will be in
Nothing makes
uniting
power
an
stronger
empire
than pure
that
hate.
relies in part
You're
on a
right,
citizenry who are
like a
mentally
chaos
guided by
god.
their senior caste.
Not
If other
Slanesh.
races the Tau Empire absorb are less receptive to the suggestion of the ethereals, it could spell a small or even a significant level of disruption for the Tau within their harmonious order. The Tau Empire consists of the 5 castes, as previously mentioned, and the castes themselves do not vie for any kind of ranked order, because all their roles, be it a worker, warrior, are seen as equally important to the overall goals of the Tau. Within each caste they do have a ranking system woven into their naming conventions, La being a lower ranking caste member and O being a higher rank. Each caste uses the 5 universal ranks, but then have specific designations relevant to their roles in each caste. For example, in the fire caste from lowest to highest, you have warrior, veteran, hero, knight, and then commander. The fire caste is likely the most well known to those outside the Tau Empire. This is the military and warrior caste. While often a little shorter in height than an average human and with a muscular build, but still generally physically weaker than your average human, Tau generally like to come up with careful plans than rush in with bloodthirsting emotion. They also prefer to hit and run rather than dig in for a battle of attrition. So often their warfare is about drawing out an enemy or making a tactical retreat to gain an upper hand and secure an overall victory. The Earth caste is not singularly about construction and infrastructure, it's more comprehensive and contains engineers, scientists, labourers and technicians. The Earth caste are the builders of Tau cities, but also those involved in the research and development of some of their most powerful technological leaps forward. And while containing your average hard labourer, they'll also have artisans who embellish and drive the visual culture of the Tau forward. The Earth caste ranks lowest to highest are worker, senior, overseer, engineer and planner. The water caste concerns are with trade and diplomacy. They seek to ensure smooth communication and diplomacy both with existing and potentially new allies for the empire. Water caste often
The Tau favor more mobile warfare, so they don't like to dig in like the Imperial Guard. They will shoot, run, ambush, run, shoot. Wow, what a bunch of weenies!
embody the very nature of the ethereal art of suggestion, and on more than one occasion Watercast have been attributed with turning non-Tau worlds toward the path of the greater good without a shot ever having been fired. The Watercast ranks, again lowest to highest, are bureaucrat, envoy, magister, diplomat and ambassador. The Aircast are so in more than just name. They function as the naval force for the Tau in both space itself and
ban mods, re-engage command protocols, easy, no mind, no choice, no problem, beep boop.
Planetary dropship operations. The Aircast, though perhaps unintentionally, live up to their title in that many of them bear disturbing physical traits from extended operation in zero gravity, in the form of them having hollowed bones, and this means that they often refuse to step foot on a planet proper, because heavy gravity environments can lead them to suffer broken bones very easily. Often considered better pilots than the Imperium can supply due to their more responsive and advanced fighter craft, but the Tau also lack the grizzled combat experience of the Imperial Navy. The Aircast's ranks lowest to highest are Messenger, Carrier, Pilot, Captain, and Admiral. Lastly, of course, are the Ethereals. As discussed already, the real leadership of the Tau Empire and the guardians of the religio-political teachings of the Tau Va. Rarely are they significantly present on a battlefield, but their presence, even if not visible, is usually assumed. The Ethereal
Paragraph.
I just wanted to say, Powdur, I've been around for a while, and I am so glad to see you diving deep into the lore, beyond the surface, getting into Luetin, and the deeper dives into 40K. Welcome to the community. We are sometimes cringe, but there is so much lore, beautiful and passionate.
Passionate. To this setting, it warms my heart. Welcome, enjoy the ride. Neckbeards aside, and bask in the glory of his of this grim dark universe for the greater good. Thank you, Ace. Wow. I can feel the hairs growing on my neck. Slowly.
Ranks lowest to highest are Prince, Prelate, King, Holy, and Ethereal.
The hole just keeps getting bigger. I know. And I'm ripping it. Ripping. Oh. I'm ripping it. Beyblade. Let it rip. I meant that I'm like ripping new holes. That, oh my god, that sounds so stupid. Making new hole, poking new holes. Poking new holes. That was bad. Thanks for the clown nose, it's well deserved. Okay.
The Tau, unlike most other
Grimsy.
races in the galaxy, shy away from physical, bloody combat. There are a few Tau who you find punching an orc's face to pieces, or ripping through Imperial armor like it were paper, nor opting for a session of headbutting each other for a bit of a laugh to see who falls into unconsciousness first. Now, for the Tau, when it comes to military engagements, they enjoy two things most readily: fighting at a distance and careful planning. Tau also prefer to get the fighting over and done with as quickly as possible, and seemingly lack the stomach for long, drawn-out battles of attrition. The Tau way is one of laying down a powerful strike to crush the enemy as quickly as possible, laying traps and using external factors to their tactical advantage, and to that end, they'll often prefer to abandon an existing outpost if they're outnumbered, regroup, plan, and employ an appropriate stratagem to crush the invaders. In some ways, this holds a lot of sense to it. The Imperium, while fiercely loyal and always a fan of dying to the last man because the Emperor will judge you, while somewhat romantic, it's not especially practical, always. The Tau...
So romantic, that's why I like him. I personally look forward to if/when you want to learn about Imperial Knights. Like, yeah, feel bad for the Tau sometimes, they're so naive by design. Yeah, it's better if they all die, so you don't have to feel bad for them anymore. Everyone was like, Bricky is collecting VTubers. Well, now I am collecting the Warhammer content creators. She's collecting neckbeards